How you doing, Duff here, and it's time for another Duff 3D video. Now, if you've been watching my 3D printing videos, you know that I already have 3 printers. I have the Creality CR10, I have the Dagama Neva, and I have the FlashForge Finder. 2 of those 3 printers were plug and play. The Neva and the CR10, I'm sorry, the Neva and the Finder. Basically, you just pull it out of the box, remove some packing materials, and you're ready to go. CR10 did require some assembly, and to be honest, it took me longer than I'd like to admit, but it's a pretty minor assembly. But now what I have here is my first 3D printer kit, right here. And this is a Creality Ender 2 kit, which is a full kit. Well, I shouldn't say that. As far as kits go, from my understanding, this is a pretty easy assembly process. But I've never put together a 3D printer that's this many parts. So should be a fun experience. I know I've watched a couple of videos on the Ender assembly process, and some of the guys, they like go part by part. They pull each part out and show it to the camera. And I don't know. I don't see much point in that, or what the viewer gets out of it. So I'm just going to kind of talk about the parts as they come. And I actually got this printer from GearBest. There'll be a link in the description below. I read some reviews on the Ender, and they've all been very, very positive. It's another Creality product. The price is very, very affordable, yet you get a high quality printer. A lot of the hot end stuff, and I think the extruder as well, is very similar to what the CR10 has. It's just a smaller format. It's 150 by 150 by 200 millimeters build volume, which isn't bad. It's bigger than my Finder, and probably very close to what my Neva has. So looking forward to seeing how this goes. Alright, I'm just taking this stuff out here. Again, I'm not going to pose for the camera. Power supply, bunch of hardware, Z-axis motor. The instructions for this, they have there's a parts list and the install instructions, which are not very detailed. It's basically a series of pictures, so I may have to refer back to some of my other resources I found regarding assembly, but hopefully it all makes sense. We'll see. Everything is packed nicely. Similar to what you see in a CR10. Stuff is packed in a way that it should not be damaged during shipping, which is very nice. It's interesting, this actually looks more put together than what I remember seeing in some of the videos. One thing I found was really cool with the Ender, again, despite its low price point, the bed on this is heated. It's a heated bed, which I was really surprised when I saw that. Okay, so that's everything. Another pair of flush cutters, nice. Never have too many of them. Alright, I'm going to try to follow exactly the same order There'll be a lot of editing on this. I'm going to verify that these brackets that are in place are tight. It's interesting, I can already see that if you're going step by step as far as the pictures go. The first thing, I know I'm jumping all over the place. The first thing it actually mentions is making sure that your voltage selector on the power supply is correct. It was at 220, I just set it to 110. Obviously very important if you live in the United States. Okay. Tell me to install the Y T-nuts for the Y first. Alright, so I'm just sliding this in as far as it can go. This is going to be great. Alright, I'm referring to one of the videos that I watched. I'm going to go the way that, in the order that the video talks about. All the parts for the printer are nicely marked. You know, here's your Z-axis screws. It's for the spool holder. Give you some spare T-nuts and screws. Belts. Yeah, it's all laid out quite nicely. Let's get a little bit closer here. Okay, I'm attaching the two bolts that hold on the Z-axis. They attach to the bottom. Make sure those are good and tight. And then there's an additional brace for the Z-axis as well. Okay, installing the secondary bracket here for the Z-axis. It's T-nuts. Okay, got that bracket in. Z feels nice and tight now. Okay, I'm now installing the Y-axis motor. It's two more T-nuts. Just goes into this slot here. Though I'm not quite sure how far down this rail this is supposed to go. I'm assuming to right here. There's this screw on the mount, you know, is up against the frame, so I assume that's how far down you go. And if not, I'll find out. Okay, next is the build plate. You have 3 wheels in the bottom, and two of the wheels go on the outside of the unit, one goes on the inside. Should get some nice smooth movement there, and I see my Y mount came off already. Need to tighten that up some more. Okay, in the bag belt or the belt bag, I'm sorry, there's 2 belts. I believe they're the same length. Yeah, they're the same length. One of them is used here for the build bed. And we want to attach this in a way that the teeth are facing down on the belt. And you just route this into this. There's a slot on the build plate to work your belt into. And the belt should go around the Y-axis motor and then into the channel of the frame, out the other side, and then loop it around the other side of the bed. Make sure it's in there snugly, tightly. Okay, you can see there, that looks good. Okay, I also need to install the Y end stop here. So I'm just lining that up at the end of the frame. 2 more T-nuts. My T-nuts don't seem to be T'ing very well. They're tightening without turning. Which I think is just a technique error on my part. Just need to get them loose. Get them lined up and then turn them turn them while they're loose into the T position, I think, and drop it on the floor. Try again. Obviously make sure that the mechanical switch is facing the print bed. I think perhaps my issue is I didn't have these backed out far enough, so they couldn't extend far enough into the channel to actually turn, maybe. Guess I have my laptop on my lap. Alright, let me get this other one on here. Okay, after just seeing the technique to get those T-nuts in there correctly, I modified. I pulled on my Y motor and saw that it still was not in right, so I'm now going to make sure that these T-nuts are actually seated and turned. There we go. And just once you have it started, just snugged up a little bit, then you can push it down so it's in the right spot. There we go. And so now this should snug up well, and I should no longer be able to pull that out. Okay, there we go. That's better. Alright, so I got my Y-axis stop on, got my belt on. Got my belt on. You can see, it seems kind of odd that these are faced up like that, but I guess I'm wondering if that's actually how it's supposed to be with these belts, because you could probably go the other way with it and have these brass fittings down. I can't tell from this picture though. Let me do some more digging. No, in the reference video I see it has them up as well, so we'll go with that. Okay, the tensioner block for the Y-axis looks like this. You have two tensioner blocks. You have one like this, and then there's another one like this, which is used on the Z, I guess. So it goes in again. We got more T-nuts. The two go on the bottom. One goes. Turn so you can see. Two go on the bottom. The one goes on the top. So let me get those in. Okay, got that slid in there. Let's move this build around. Oh, darn it. Alright, got my T-nuts in. Let's make sure they turn. Alright, obviously you want to get this tight, so I just get this as tight as I can. Okay, it's pretty tight. From what I read, there's like a belt tensioner, I guess, you can print out for this thing to make it easier to keep tension on the belt, but I do not have one of those yet. Alright, so the next thing is the Z-axis stepper motor. I apologize, what I was holding there was the X-axis stuff. Right here is the Z-axis extruder, or I'm sorry, the Z-axis stepper motor. Alright, so once again, you got it. More T-nuts. These are a little bit more challenging to reach. I'm going to have to use, looks like I got to use the Allen key for this one. So I don't know if you've been noticing, but what I've been doing is actually backing these out even further than they come normally, just to give me the slack to get them turned once we're in the channel. Okay, so I got them in there, just slide in the channel, and then tighten these two screws down. Come on, turn. Yeah, see, I can see right here these didn't turn for me. They need to turn. There's not going to be a whole lot of benefit. If you just cinch these down and these are still vertical in line with the rails, it's not going to be attached. So let me get these in. Alright, what I'm doing is just using one of the smaller Allen wrenches just to turn that T-nut for me before I tighten it, just so I can make sure that it's oriented correctly. Because, you know, once I put this together, I really don't want to have to take it apart again, if at all possible. Okay, there we go. The Z stepper motor is in place. Alright, we're going to attach the rod, which comes in this protective sheath. And it looks like I need to back out these grub screws here. Just these top two ones. And while you're in here, make sure these bottom two ones are tight, because those are the ones that attach it to the actual stepper motor itself. The top two are used to hold the lead screw in place. So just loosen up those top ones, not the bottom. Okay, they should just slide in, and then you tighten these back up. And be careful while doing this, because this bushing here, as you can see, is kind of perforated and stuff. So if you over tighten it, or if you don't support it while you're torquing it, I can very easily see how these get damaged. The CR10s were famous for having these bearings be messed up. So okay, there you go, that's locked in place. Cool. Okay. Now we're putting the Z-axis limit sensor on, and I did see in another video that they recommended that you actually hook up the wire for the Z-stop, because once you attach this, it's rather difficult to get to, which I can see that already. So I'm going to hook up this wire, and then you have two more T-screws, and then there's another hole down here where this screw goes in, which is in the bag with the Z-stop. So again, let me get this on. Probably a little screwdriver would actually, like what they give you here, would probably work a little bit better actually. Okay, I'm just putting it in snug but not tight yet, because I have to get that bottom one in. Alright, so let me finish this up quick. But you can see here why you want to put that connector in now, because you absolutely cannot do it once you mount this stop. You gotta get it in now. Alright, so I'm getting this bottom screw just started, the non-T-nut screw, and then let's get this one in there. Okay, all three screws in. Right here's my Z-stop, and I'm plugged in. Okay, so now I'm ready to mess around with this big X-axis extruder assembly. Oops, whoa. Okay, there's some small screws in there. Be careful when emptying the bag. There's my X limit switch, and another standoff. There's already 3 standoffs on here, and you need to add this one. Oh, that's weird, I'm not sure why they put 3 on but not the 4th. Okay, you can put that on, and I think there's a small little wrench here. You can, well, maybe not. It's not small enough. I'm just going to get pliers on that quick. Okay, so now you have to attach the X limit switch, which goes like this. You know, the stop should be facing this direction, and you use the 4 screws that are included to attach it. Okay, X limit switch is on. Okay, now I slid the hot end onto the X axis, and the way I'm guessing you tell which way to do it as far as front and back is this side had the little plastic insert, so I'm assuming that's the front. Because on the back of this you'll see that there is like a little cutout here, which I'm not sure what that's used for yet, but I'm assuming this is the correct way to put the hot end onto the X-axis. Okay, the way you want it is you want this hole to go towards the X-axis when you're installing it. Alright, this might be hard to show on camera. So the way this goes is there's some T-nuts here. So you're going to actually be sliding on the outside here, get the T-nuts in, and then that cutout here is to give space for the head of this the roller screw. So yeah, this is the way it's going to go. There's two holes up here that you use to stick your tool through to tighten it. So it's impossible for me to really do this and keep it in frame. So just trying to describe what I'm going to be doing here. And you'll notice I actually kind of have everything upside down. That's the way that I have stuff oriented to do this. And this seems a little tricky to me. A little tricky. Again, not sure how well you can see that. Alright, ran into a little issue where the Allen wrench that was included with the ender, maybe I tightened too much on one of the other T-nuts, but it's kind of a little rounded out, so it wasn't working correctly to turn these T-nuts. So I got some of my DeWalt Allen wrench keys, and they're a little higher quality. I think they will hold up a little bit better. So, I'm still futzing around with this. This is definitely the most challenging fitting to get on, but I think I can do it. So basically, we got to line up that hole with this. It's about as simple as I can explain it. And like most things, it's simpler said than done. Okay, got it on. Definitely the most challenging. Definitely the most challenging part of it. That's not a great design there, to have to try to jam an Allen wrench through those holes to tighten it. Not great, but got it on. Okay, so now I'm taking my second belt assembly right here, and we're doing something very similar to what we did on the first one. There's on this, the slots are on the bottom where the hot end is. That's where you're going to be threading your belt through, and you're going to thread it with the teeth. So the teeth are going around the gears on the drive motor. So let me do that. Around, going under the offsets, around the gear. Back around, under the offsets. We're keeping it in the channel. Yeah. It's going under the rollers. It's going under the rollers for the hot end, although it seems a little tight to me. Okay. Pro tip: start your belt like that, so the brass fitting is out of the way, and then slide your hot end over it, and then you should be able to attach both ends relatively easily. Teeth facing down, thread it in there. Hopefully you can see this. I don't know if you see this. Yeah. Okay, there you go. There's my belts. Okay, and then you have your other stopper. This is the X-axis stopper, and of course it again is using T-nuts. My favorite thing. Let me get those lined up. Okay, I'm gonna get these lined up and get the tensioner in there. Okay, so now this X-axis assembly, it just slides on top, and then there's a little brass fitting here that the Z rod screws into. And so I'm gonna bring this down until it's about halfway. Okay, I just noticed that when I'm turning this, there seems to be more resistance than there should be. On the Z, it seems like I have to work a little harder than I should have to. So I'm going to make sure that this little fitting that the Z-rod threads into is square. It kind of looks like it's not. So let me take that out and put it back in. Okay, I see why it was uneven. I pulled out the one screw here and it has a lock washer on top where it's supposed to be. This other one has this screw up top and the lock washer down below, which is incorrect, which is why the fitting was angled. So at least I know why it wasn't threading on cleanly. And of course the head of this cheap screw is stripping out on me now and I need to try to get it out. Fun times, fun times. Alright, so you may see, do you see my drill there in the background? Right here, here's my DeWalt drill. And you may say, okay, well why did you have your drill here? And that was because, as I mentioned, this one screw here, or yeah, this one bolt was like stripped. I couldn't get it out. And I eventually tired of messing with it and I just said screw it. And I took my DeWalt drill and I drilled it out. And I just replaced both of these screws with some better quality M3 screws that I keep a stock of. So I put them in there, but one thing I did notice was if I try to make this really tight, it was binding. So I actually have that slightly loose now so I could turn this. Otherwise there was too much effort required to turn them. So I'm not sure if there's a slight misalignment possibly, but I'm not really worried about this being rock tight because I know in the CR10 it's not either. You know, there's movement on the Z-rod, so I guess I won't know for sure until I go to print. But for now, that's what I'm going with. The next thing I got to do is put on the spool holder bracket. Not just two screws, and it's oriented. I didn't give it a lot of licks. I didn't lick it hard. Okay, so it's just two bolts here. Very easy. Okay, and then we're just threading on the actual spool holder. And I believe I've seen that there's various modifications for this, because one thing I can see already, like much like the CR10, the opening for the extruder is right by the threaded rod. So I think I saw that there's, just like the CR10, you can print your own 3D guide here to keep the filament from hitting the Z-rod. So I can see that being one of my first modifications. Okay, so it's getting late. This is, like most things, this is taking longer than normal. So I'm going to call it good for here, or for now, and pick this up again tomorrow. How you doing? Second day. So when we last left you, I got done drilling out the screw that was stuck here for the threaded rod, the Z-rod. Put the spool mount on. And next up is the bed itself. My work area, which is very typical for me, is a freaking disaster. It's got parts everywhere, screws everywhere. Not sure why I can't avoid that scenario, but yeah, that's the way it is. So, let me find the bed. I'm not sure where I stuck it. Okay, the bed is a little bit different because it only has 3 mounting points on it, but it attaches in a similar fashion to the CR10, where you're dropping the screw through, you're putting a spring on the other end of it, and then sticking that through. Sticking that through the slide rail, and then you're attaching the adjusting knob. And from what I understand, just like the CR10, you can buy bigger knobs for this as well. So this is pretty straightforward. I'm just tightening these up so they don't fall off, but obviously you got to level the bed. Okay, I'm going to screw in the Bowden tube into the extruder. It looks like you're just going into raw plastic, so it doesn't feel like it's threaded, so you want to make sure that you have it straight as you come in. Okay, tube's in. Alright, now I'm going to attach the various power connectors. They're all labeled. So there's your Z, this is my Y. Then you need, it should be this, it should be the Y and detection. This big one looks like the heat bed, I would assume. Power supply, X, alright. You got X for the X-axis, E for the extruder. And you have your X end stop as well. Okay. Alright, so all the wires short of the power supply should be hooked up. Alright, one of the things I saw in other Ender videos was that one of the complaints was that they didn't have a cover for the actual power supply, so all of the power connections were exposed. This kit does have the cover included. You have to kind of awkwardly shove the wires in now. It is awkward. It's a very small hole, but you have 3 terminals to get through there. There we go. Alright, so the line from the power cord goes to the left, and the line from the printer goes through the right hole here. Again, you have to kind of try to stick these through one at a time somehow. It's definitely very awkward getting these through. Awkward. This is kind of dumb. Okay, got them both through the cover here. So you have a little flip-up bar here, protective cover on the terminals, and everything's labeled L, N, and ground, which is your power cord connection, and each terminal is labeled accordingly. So we're going to attach those, and for the actual printer side, it's a let's see. You just have actually 3 positive and 3 negatives, so what the hell? Oh, okay. You have 3 positives and 3 negatives, so you should be able to use any of those. They should all function the same, so that's what we're going to do. It's not exactly easy to get a screwdriver on here. So L to L, end to end, ground to the little ground picture for the power cord side. Okay, power cord's in. Now the actual line from the printer. Here's what it looks like, and then slide your little fancy cover up, and it looks like there's, oops, slide it up and it looks, there's some holes here. It looks like you're supposed to maybe put some screws through to keep this secure. But there's no corresponding holes on the case to do that, on the power supply case. Weird. Of course, I have the shroud on upside down. It's awesome. I have it with this cutout up top, and it looks like it should be in the bottom. So let me undo this quickly. Alright, got that reversed around, and then push this on. It looks like there's two screws that you can line up there. Alright, power supply is connected. Alright, let's turn it on. Nothing blew up, that's good. The display in this looks very similar to the CR10. I'm going to try to auto home it. Hey, at least it homes, that's good. Alright, so I need to clean up some of this mess and put the build surface on, and then level the bed and see if this will actually print. Big test. Okay, so you see that the Ender 2 is now happily printing away the cat G code that's included on the SD card, and yeah, all seems to be going well. So let me just recap some of my observations with the kit, keeping in mind that I've never built a kit to this degree before, and I do realize that as far as kits go, this isn't a very complicated kit. It could have been much worse. First of all, the instructions that come with it, it's literally 7 pictures, and yeah, if you don't have experience building a printer, this just isn't going to cut it. I mean, it shows you how things are supposed to go, kind of, but not in nearly enough detail. A beginner is going to struggle if he tries to rely just on these instructions. I was referring to a couple different videos that I found on YouTube along the way to help me along. As far as the assembly process itself, it went pretty smoothly. My biggest issue was a couple issues with T-nuts, not getting T-nuts to actually T. Again, that might just be a technique problem with what I'm doing, but I had a hard time getting the T-nuts to always get into the slot and turn like they're supposed to. But I eventually did manage to do it, but probably not the easiest way, but that was a little bit of a struggle for me. I spent probably the greater part of an hour trying to fix the issue with the Z lead screw bracket up here, because like I mentioned, when I tried to put it in as is, there was tension on the Z-rod that it was binding. It was very hard to turn, which isn't a good thing. And when I tried to get the screw out to possibly readjust that bracket up top, it stripped. Not great quality screws, but long story short, I basically drilled those out, drilled out the screw that was sticking. I replaced it with a couple higher quality M3 screws that I have in my stockpile of parts, and now it's much better. Although I do not have it cinched down tight. If I would turn both of those screws tight, it would bind. So it is not super tight, and I don't know if that's normal, abnormal, but I'll see if that creates a problem for me over time. But right now it seems to be printing just fine. So that was my solution to that problem. As far as leveling the bed, I do have another 3-point leveling system on the FlashForge Finder. This is challenging because of the placement of the knobs. You have one here, one in the back. Those aren't too bad to reach. But then you have one right over here in this slot. So trying to, when you're in the front left level position and you're trying to level back there, it's basically impossible. So what I was doing was I was basically pushing the bed forward so I could get access to the leveling screw, and then pushing it back, seeing how much clearance I had, pull it back forward. So I was just alternating that. I'm hoping that once I print out the additional the thumb screw enhancers to make the turning surface a little bit bigger, maybe I'd be able to do that a little bit easier. But that was definitely a pain in the ass. And I've heard others that have built this say the same thing. It is a pain in the ass in the stock configuration. As far as the print itself, the print bed heated up super fast. I guess because it's so small. Right now it's at 45 degrees. The screen on the Ender 2 is just like a small version of the CR10. It's very familiar. Just a tinier version of it. You know, the Marlin software looks very familiar to me. You know how to do things right away. You got a push knob to control things. Of course, it's a little klutzy having an external power supply that just kind of, just sits wherever. That's not the most elegant design, but it does work. It does work. But one other thing that I've seen other people mention that is annoying is the fact that the power supply itself does not have its own power switch. So unless you are physically unplugging your box, or if you have this, you can have it on its own surge protector, I guess, to give it a switch. But otherwise, you have to unplug it. Otherwise, this fan will be running all the time. You'll have power to the power supply the entire time. So that's a little dumb. But again, when you consider the price, I think that's the trade-off that you make. But other than that, yeah, it seems good. I'm using the filament that was included with the printer to do the cat, and so far the quality of it looks very, very good. I see no problems whatsoever with it. Again, most of the struggles I had probably have to do with my lack of experience with putting these together. I'm sure if I did another one, it would go better, and that improvement would scale up as I do more and more kits. So all in all, I think it went okay. Although I did see one guy I saw, and obviously has much more 3D printing experience than me. He said that he put his together in a little bit more than a half an hour. I wasn't keeping track of how much time I spent altogether, but I'm sure it was well over 2 hours, maybe closer to 3. So yeah, got some ways to go yet. As far as other mods I'm going to do for this besides the knobs, I'm also going to print a filament guide here, because just like the CR10, the filament is right against the Z screw. So I want to get a little filament guide to kind of keep that away, keep the filament from hitting the rod. But other than that, I think I'm good to go. I'm going to do some testing. I'm hoping that because of its small form factor, I can put it right next to the CR10 over there. It should fit nicely. And looking to have some fun with this and see what I can do. The build surface, although not nearly the size of the CR10, is big enough to do quite a few things that I would normally print. So I'm going to give it a try. Again, I got this printer via GearBest, and I will have a link in the description below if you're interested in this printer. And I would recommend whenever you're buying from GearBest, if you're in the US like I am, look for the printer in the US warehouse. If I ever have an option when I do a link, I'm going to try to link to the US warehouse, just because that will get you around some of the shipping problems that people have experienced when shipping overseas from China. So definitely, if you can get from the get it from the US warehouse, it is the way to go. So that's the way I'm going to try to steer people. But yeah, that's it for now. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. Any comments, suggestions, criticism, compliments, whatever. Hopefully I can edit this video down to something digestible. There's a lot of video on here just because of the way it was futzing around, but in the end it seems like it's come out okay. So that's it for now. Till next time, Duffman out.